I'm Richard.
And I'm Will.
And together we're
The Irreverent Nerds. Bum, bum, bum.
Konnichiwa.
Nerds.
Nerds.
We are back with our return guest, Mr.
Guess
Dan
who's back?
Johnson.
Back
Hey,
again.
everybody.
Dan, welcome back.
I'm glad to be back, guys. I'm a little surprised you had me back after what I said on that last podcast. I am really sorry about the complaints you guys got and everything. And I promise this time I'm wearing pants and I've got the camera angled up so nobody's going to see anything inappropriate even if I wasn't. So I apologize for that. I do apologize for that. And for anyone who saw me in that last one, now you know why I call it a strip threat and not a strip tease.
That makes me think of Anchorman, which there is an Anchorman podcast now.
Yes.
Wow.
Will I've listened to a little bit of it. Like Will Ferrell in his persona from Anchorman interviews people. So that's a pretty cool. It's very popular right now, apparently.
Really? Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Oh yeah, I mean, Will Ferrell, man. Of course it'd be popular. No. Anyway, so I just came from a work party. I'm very relaxed. I had like 3 drinks. I'm having a good time already, but
I'm
I'm
hyped
here-
up on Abilify.
I get to be here with you nerds to talk about something I know nothing about, My Hero Academia, an anime. From what Will has told me, Dan, you love this show. Will, you've said you love this show. I know virtually nothing about it. So guys, actually, Dan, we'll start with you. Why should I watch My Hero Academia? I'm a busy man. I got 4 kids. I got a full-time job. I got a podcast. I got a YouTube channel. Should I invest some time in watching this show? What do you think?
I'll put it this way. These days, I rarely watch television. If I watch TV, I'll usually watch something like maybe once, like a new show. I'll watch it like one time. In the last year and a half, I have seen every season of My Hero Academia at least 3 times.
Wow.
It's that good. It is. My first question to you would be: do you like superheroes?
I do.
Yeah, you're going to want to see it. Basically, the reason why I fell in love with My Hero Academia is because this is the way superheroes should be portrayed. And I've been telling people for the longest time that if you want to do superheroes right in America, look at the way My Hero Academia treats the characters. The only other thing I can say about the show is this is the one that sent me down the rabbit hole of anime. I had seen a few previous anime shows like Battle of the Planet, Star Blazers, Speed versus the old school stuff, and Will and another friend of mine, Josh Rout, convinced me to take a look at the show. In fact, my friend Josh, when we were working together, constantly was talking to me about it, and I said, "Okay, I'm going to check it out and see what it's like." It was on Hulu, so I was able to watch it there. And like I said, after the first 2 episodes, I was hooked. And after the 4th episode, it became one of my favorite superhero series of all time.
Nice.
It's just it's an amazing show with some incredible characters. And again, if you love superheroes, this is really the show you need to be watching because they nail the idea about what a hero is perfectly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we'll pivot over to you for a second. What's obviously it's about superheroes, but beyond that, what's the basic premise of the show? Like, is there a pattern that most episodes follow? Is it episodic? Is it a continual storyline?
Oh,
Like,
it is. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. Go ahead, sir.
Well, it's both episodic and a continual narrative. I mean, it's more so a continued narrative, but there's always the event. It's like this. It has main story arcs separated by short stories in between to give the audience a cool down, a little break from the long story arcs. It stars our main character, Izuku Midoriya, sorry. And this art, by the way, is done by the very talented Joe Lisi. So go check out his art by joelisi.com. But like I said, Izuku Midoriya, or more commonly known in the show as Deku because of his bushy green hair.
Oh, and side note for those of you that are listening on audio only, if you want to see the video with our beautiful faces, you can watch it on Spotify. So, Will, continue, sir.
Y'all can also look out for Joe Lissy's artwork. I'm sorry you couldn't see it. But he's usually called by his last name Midoriya. So I'm more familiar with how to pronounce that name. But Midoriya, aka Deku, he was born in a world where basically the X-Men happened and 80% of the planet are mutants. They all have superpowers. They're all metahumans, whatever you want to call them. In this show, superpowers are called quirks. So 80% of the planet has quirks, and it's given rise to both supervillains and in response superheroes. Midoriya wants to be a superhero like his favorite superhero, All Might, which is basically the Superman, Captain America, and knowledge. What's the word I'm looking for, Richard? Analogy. Analog. I don't know.
Analog? Yeah, that works.
Yeah, analog. There we
He's
go.
sort of like a Superman Captain America mashup.
Yeah.
There you go.
I really, you know what? All Might's probably my favorite character of this entire show.
Yeah.
But so it's too bad it's not actually about him. But I love the show. I love the characters. Deku, Midoriya, he is a part of the 20% that was born with no superpowers. But what he has is on the inside, his strong drive to just, without thinking, to just step in and save people, touches All Might so much that All Might, who is secretly dying, and is trying to keep this information from getting out to the media and causing a panic and causing the villains of the world to become emboldened, decides to pass his superpowers on to Midoriya. Midoriya is then enrolled and accepted into UA, a high school for superheroes, to train them to be the next generation of superheroes. And in this world, a lot of people are being superheroes for the wrong reasons. They want to be superheroes for money, fame, power. But Midoriya, or as he is called in his superhero form, Deku, wants to be a superhero for all the right reasons. He's our main protagonist. He actually cares about people and wants to do good. And so the show has a lot to do with him growing as a person, being able to learning to be able to control his powers, his relationship with All Might, and just how he touches and influences the rest of his classmates.
I did want to say one important thing to know about the name Deku. One of his classmates, and this is actually a childhood friend of his, is a character named Bakugo.
Yes.
And Bakugo has the abilities to basically, his sweat is like nitroglycerin, and basically, the more he sweats, the more he can create these explosions. And as he grows and matures, he's actually able to make them larger and bigger. And basically, they were childhood friends. And Bakugo has like this persecution complex where he thinks Midoriya has always been looking down on him. And it pisses him off because, as he says, he's a quirkless loser. And there's even a couple of great scenes where he confronts him and says, "How dare you, someone who didn't even have any powers, look down on me, who's supposed to be the greatest hero of all time?" And Deku actually, it's an insult initially. Bakugo says it's a word for someone who's useless, someone who has no meaning, no purpose. And Midoriya embraces the name and says it's going to be the name of the greatest hero of all time. And he's thoroughly committed to that. And what's really wonderful about it is a lot of shows would probably have it where these two are always going to be butting heads, and they do. They do. And there's a wonderful scene where their teacher, Mr. Aizawa, makes the comment that whenever there's something going on, whenever there's something happening, one of these two are going to be at the center of it. And he already is recognizing that there's great leadership ability in both these men. or these young men, when they become boys, these boys become men, they're going to be. He already realizes they're going to be the greatest heroes of all time. And slowly but surely, you start to see these two become friends. They start to become more. They're not exactly besties just yet, but by the current season, you can already see that they're starting to form a genuine friendship. And I'm really curious to see where it goes from here on out. It's going to be awesome.
Is a
Speaking
little
of
bit?
that,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to ask Dan, how many seasons have you watched so far?
I've seen all the way up to season 5.
Okay, yeah, I'm currently watching season 5. I'm on the beginning. I just didn't know if you were watching ahead in subtitles or anything.
Oh no! I was able to catch it on Funimation. I was able to see the episodes dubbed.
Cool.
Oh, dude, the end of season 5 with the villains is that's so good.
I look forward to it.
Oh, you're gonna love it, dude. It's awesome.
But sorry for interrupting you, Richard. You were saying?
No, I was just going to draw a parallel and ask how apropos you guys think it is.
Apropos.
Apropos?
Is that what you said?
However you say that. By the way,
I guess
here's our other guest host.
Hey,
You're the
Is
writer,
it-
Dan. You know what apropos means, right? I don't.
Is it?
I
I
was
think
looking
it.
at things appropriate.
Yeah,
Or-
it comes from the same root as appropriate, I would think.
Yeah.
But if it fits, in other words, I was thinking of the show Smallville with the relationship between Clark Kent and Lex Luthor, where there's definitely a long-term friendships up there, but there's obviously a rivalry, and eventually they become pretty much sworn enemies, even though the friendship never fully leaves in the show. I was going to see what you thought of that as a comparison.
I'd say
I think
it's in
it's the
reverse.
opposite.
Yeah, because in one of the first episodes, Bakugo actually comments to Midoriya that if he wants to get superpowers, he could always kill himself, and maybe in his next life he'll come back with powers. And I mean, he's ruthless to this kid. He bullies him. Even some of his classmates that are joining in on the bullying even say, maybe you're a little rough on him back there. Maybe you shouldn't, be that rough on the kid. Just cut him some slack. But no, he's Bakugo is an asshole initially. It takes a while for you to warm up to the character when you start to say there's some good qualities there. But initially, he comes across as just a hot-headed jerk. But after a while, you start to see some of the good qualities in the guy. So.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the great things I like about it. And it's one of the things I'm enjoying about the discovering the world of anime is a lot of American shows will start to say, these are our characters. Here they are right now. And this is everything you need to know about them in the first episode. Whereas the traditional Japanese route is we're going to let you peel them like onions. You're going to find out the layers of these characters. You're going to find out a little bit about the main characters or one or two of the main characters first. But we're going to let you discover who these characters are a little bit as we go along. And
yeah, I love that too.
that's a hallmark of good storytelling, I think. And again, it's just something you don't get in a lot of the American superhero shows. Well, Smallville had to have everything almost up front immediately. As far as the basic setup, as time went on, you got a little bit more of the Superman mythos, and you got a chance to see a little bit more of what made Clark Kent Superman. But the basic premise had to be set up almost immediately, and you were already getting hints in the first episode that Lex and Clark were going to be on opposite sides. In the first episode of My Hero Academia, you cannot honestly say Midoriya and Bakugo are ever going to be friends. It just doesn't look like it's going to be.
Granted, it's hard to not hide anything when, like, they've been adversarial in the comics and other assorted media for 40, 50 years, 60 years at that point. So it's not like they could necessarily hide the fact that, oh yeah, these guys are gonna be enemies eventually.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I hear what you're saying though.
Yeah, My Hero Academia does have the advantage, if you can call it an advantage, of it gets to start fresh and really surprise people because the only thing it's had so far is a manga, and this is the first animated series based on it. So
yeah, I was gonna ask if it had source material. Do you guys want to talk a bit about that?
Manga. I don't know who does this manga. I feel ashamed. I don't know the creator's name.
I know the name, but I'll be honest with you. If I tried to say it, I know I'd screw it up. So
Yeah, I was going to ask if either of you had read the manga or the source material. I'm assuming not at this point.
You can buy it at
I-
Walmart.
actually, I read up to the third manga,
Okay.
and
Oh,
I have
cool.
up of the fifth one. Can I give a shout out on the screen for service?
Absolutely.
Viz Media,
Right.
Shonen Jump. Shonen Jump is the magazine that publishes My Hero Academia, and also
Okay.
publishes several other series as well. They do Food Wars, Spy Family, and several others. And basically, what they do is they'll publish this in My Hero Academia in Shonen Jump, and then they'll release the mangas after it's been released in magazine form. If you go to their website, you can actually subscribe to Shonen Jump for $2 a month.
That's
That
not
gives
bad.
That gives you access to everything they have published up to the current issues.
Really?
Unlimited
So we're talking
access.
about decades of Shonen Jump?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I need to do that.
If you want to read My Hero Academia from the very beginning for $2 a month, you can go there and do it. And it's the best deal in comics I've ever seen in my life. It is. You can literally, if you just subscribe to this service for monthly, you will never have to buy another comic book again or another manga again, because there's too much material there. Even if you had free time, if you had nothing to do the rest of your life, I don't think you could ever get through all the stories there.
And
Yes.
Richard,
I was going to say that's definitely a better deal than Marvel, DC, or probably even Comixology.
yeah.
Oh, dude, I've been saying this ever since I went down the rabbit hole with manga and with anime. The Japanese are eating our lunch as far as comic books go, and to be honest with you, the way DC and Marvel are handling comics, we deserve to start. We're practically
Sadly.
we're just handing it over, saying, "Here, take it, it's yours." Like I said, you root for the home team. I love comic books. I love Superman. I love the Flash. I love Spider-Man. These are characters I've loved and adored. And God knows if DC and Marvel would actually publish them once again, I'd be happy to buy their books. But for right now, I don't recognize any of these damn characters. The Japanese are at least giving me something that's entertaining me. I'm enjoying the heck out of it. And honestly, it's a better read, and it's a better value too. I mean, even by the mangas, it's like $10 for a book that's probably going to take you a good while to get through, as opposed to like a $6 book that you can read in like 10 minutes.
That's true. Yeah.
The bargain. Like I said, the money. It's a better bargain, and like I said, better material.
Hey, Richard.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, Dan. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to ask Richard if he wanted me to explain what Shonen Jump is, or if that's not necessary.
I feel like it's self-explanatory in the context. The publishing company, they have a magazine as well. And then
Well,
subscriptions.
Shonen Jump is the magazine.
It is a magazine. Okay. But they offer a
It's
subscription
an
service?
anthology. It's an anthology of boys comics. It's been around since the 80s or before. That's where Dragon Ball and a lot of other things got their start.
Okay.
Before they got their own books.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So it's sort of like
And that's it.
like a science fiction short story magazine where maybe some science fiction writers got their start. It's kind of like the Japanese version of that, but with
Everybody
manga?
puts the new chapter of their latest of their franchise in there. It's more like a small phone book, but yeah.
nice. Okay.
And I was going to say, I've got the name of the creator of My Hero Academia. I'm going to try to pronounce it. If I screw it up, please, I'm sure somebody in the comment section will tell me. It's Kohei Horikoshi.
Cool.
And like I said, he is. I recall reading before that Horikoshi has done some other manga series, and My Hero Academia is just like the latest one that he's doing.
Cool.
And unfortunately, I have been reading more and more that the series is about ready to come to an end. That he's getting ready to wrap it up very shortly. But again, that's the way it goes with manga. Sometimes you get a series that'll run forever, and then some that when the writer feels like he's run the course, they'll decide to end it. And Like I said, I'm very curious to see what he does with it. I'm curious to see what the ending's going to be because, like I said, so far it's been a heck of a journey, and I'm curious to see I'm going to ride it to the end.
Hey Dan, have you seen or heard of any of the My Hero Academia spin-offs?
I have actually. I have seen Vigilantes. I've read
Yeah,
the first two
Vigilantes.
chapters, which is really good.
Cool.
In this world of My Hero Academia, the heroes have to be licensed. It's actually against the law for anyone to use their powers unless they're a licensed hero, or if it's like for work, they have to be certified to do it. But there are vigilantes in this universe, and this particular storyline explores the ones who don't want to go to the hero, you don't want to become the licensed hero route, but they still want to make a difference in the world.
That reminds me a little bit of The Boys. I've not read the comics from The Boys, but I've watched a little bit of the series. Very different overall premise, but it just reminds me a bit of that. Like there's like a both corporate and government involvement with the licensing or the approval of particular superheroes. So just reminded me of that.
I will say that if you're watching this and you have kids about say 7 or 8 or so, if you're comfortable with them watching Justice League, then I think My Hero Academia would be appropriate for them.
Nice. Okay.
Like I said, there's a little bit of profanity here and there, like a bastard or a damn or hell every now and then.
Yeah, Mandy watched the first episode with me. She was didn't like the profanity, but she ended up really liking the series by the end of the episode. I'm sorry I cut you off again. I guess I'm bad at that.
No, I was just going to say, on the other hand, if you have kids, I would not recommend you watching The Boys with them. That is definitely not going to be one for the young ones just yet. I'm not sure it's really appropriate for some adults, but
yeah, that's debatable too. Like the very first episode. Now, in fairness to them, the very first episode they let you know what you're in for. Like when you have a human that gets torn apart by being run through by basically a flash analog. Like this person literally explodes on screen. It's like, yeah, you know what you're getting in for if you continue this series.
Yep.
Have you seen
they have the dog?
Have you seen Herogasm yet? The Herogasm episode yet?
No. I think I've only watched. I don't know if I made it all the way through season 1, but I've watched part of season 1 at least, and yeah, I've kind of given up on it for now. I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of gratuitous violence for its own sake, where it's just like, they're just trying to gross you out. They're trying to up the ante. I'm like, I gotta take that or leave it. That's just me though. Like, if it's got a really good storyline, I can put up with that up to a point. But
I think The Boys does have a pretty good storyline. It's not a bad series. It's actually very good. I think I like some of the characters. Some of the characters I think are very repulsive, but in the way that you like a villain to be repulsive.
Oh man!
But again, that's the other thing too. Is there's a lot of this. There's this idea about superheroes in America have to be edgy. They've got to be dark. They got to be grim. And My Hero Academia it's bright and it's a lot more bright and sunny than that.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's why I enjoy it.
Does it hark back more to like what would you consider the heydays of American comics? Be 60s, 70s? Would it be before that or after? Or like what's your golden age of comics if you had to pick one?
It's kind of hard to say. I personally myself, I would say the golden age of comics would probably be around the I'd say it's the Silver Age. I'd say it's creation of the Flash in Showcase, and DC going out there and reinventing their golden age characters, turning Barry Allen to the Flash, Hal Jordan into the Green Lantern, Carter Hall into Hawkman. And then Marvel creating the Marvel Universe with the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. And the run throughout the 60s, when you've got Kirby and Ditko at Marvel, and then Carmine Infantino and Gil Kane at DC Comics is just fantastic. And then when you got that switch where Gil Kane goes over to Marvel and Jack Kirby goes over to DC, and some of the stuff they produced wasn't always successful. I mean, Jack Kirby's Fourth World was considered a failure initially, but looking back on it now, it's considered a masterpiece. And of course, you got Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams reinventing Batman and reinventing Green Arrow and Green Lantern. And then all the way up until the time that Jim Shooter takes over Marvel Comics. For me, my golden age is Marvel in the 1980s, when Jim Shooter comes in and you got Chris Claremont on X-Men and John Byrne on the Fantastic Four and Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz on Spider-Man and Frank Miller on Daredevil. It's like almost every Marvel comic you picked up, they weren't always masterpieces, but they were good. You could at least pick up an issue and be entertained. And sometimes you'd be blown away and just realize this is the greatness being created on this page. And at the same time, too, DC was always considered like your little brother's company. But then you got Mark Wolfman and George Perez coming in with the Teen Titans. You got Alan Moore taking over Swamp Thing. You've got a little bit more of a reinvention of Batman, John Byrne taking over Superman. So yeah, I'd say basically up until, I'd say from Showcase number 4 with the introduction of the Flash to probably the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, that is what I consider to be the greatest period of comics of all time. Just because of the creators that were involved. You were still having Golden Age guys like Will Eisner creating new books, and Jack Kirby. Ditko was still in the game, but you had new talents like Perez coming in, Frank Miller, John Byrne. It's just it's a wonderful, magical time. If you were reading comic books at the time like I was, then every trip to the spinner rack was a brand new adventure just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, honestly, I wish that I had read more back at that age. Like, I remember, I think late 80s, my grandmother, sometimes she would buy things for me that my parents didn't approve of.
Yeah.
So I remember her buying me a Batman comic. And I think this was right around the time of like the Frank Miller Revolution, where things were getting a little darker and in DC. And I'm pretty sure they were starting to show like blood and stuff like that. I don't know how far back that went, but I just remember coming home and then my parents didn't let me keep it. That made her take it back. So, but yeah, like I feel like I missed out on some things. So I think the most I had comics wise was like, I remember I had like a Donald Duck comic and I had like a DuckTales comic and a couple of others, but yeah, it was just something I never got big into. My dad did when he was a kid. I know he said when, because he was growing up in the 60s, so he was reading like, classic Iron Man. I think he always liked Iron Man and obviously Spider-Man. And but yeah, you referenced the 80s, and I actually picked up a used late 80s Avengers comic not too long ago from McKay's, which is our local. It's like Nerd Heaven here. It's like a used bookstore that sells all kinds of stuff. And I think the during that particular run, the Wasp there was a transition in leadership. The Wasp was leading the Avengers, and then it transitioned to Captain Marvel, who was Monica Rambeau at that time. So it's just interesting to see some of the, like, especially after watching like WandaVision and Loki, and now I know She-Hulk is coming out soon. So She-Hulk was in it as well in that particular comic. It was just interesting to see some of the alternate storylines, if you will, and realizing that some of the modern stuff that's coming out now is probably borrowed from some of those. So it's cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think unfortunately the way comics are nowadays, with a lot of creators aren't going to create new characters, or if they are, they're going to make them for themselves, their own company. So I think that's one of the big things about DC and Marvel. It seems like they're just rehashing the same stories over and over again, and trying to find new ways to shock readers or try to get readers involved, when really what they need to do is just sit down and tell a good story. People will come back.
Yeah, honestly, I enjoy the older stuff. I don't even care about picking up the new stuff. But if I could just go back and get the old stuff, that's what I want to read. The stuff that was made before I was born, the stuff that was coming out when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, there is good stuff out there, but I'm finding it more and more. It's the indie publishers that are putting the really good stuff out there, I think. Um, but most of my stuff that I collect nowadays, it's trades or graphic novels. I've been picking up the DC. I'm looking at a huge stack of the books right now. It's DC Showcase presents these huge phone book size black and white collections
Oh, nice.
of Silver Age, Bronze Age comics, and I'm starting to pick up some of the Marvel Essentials, and every now and then I'll pick up like Marvel Masterworks, reprinting in color, and I'm just enjoying these a lot more because, like I said, I'm revisiting stories that I read as a kid initially and stories I'd read about when I was a kid, and I figure life is too short. Don't read crap. Read the good stuff.
That's right.
I hear that. Well, we got about 2 minutes left, guys. So just pulling back around to My Hero Academia. I guess I'll finish with you, Dan. Like, what is it about the way they handle superheroes that caused you to really love it? Like, I'm assuming some of that evokes like the comic golden ages and silver ages that you love. Like, but what is it about the way they handle superheroes that made you fall in love with the show?
I would say it's probably Midoriya's arc when he gets into My Hero when he gets into UA. UA has this test where there's written exam, but there's also a practical exam, and they set the kids out, and they have to destroy these robots. And one set is worth 1 point, one set's worth 2 points, one set is worth 3 points. And there's a fourth one, which they basically say, you don't have to worry about them. They're not worth anything. They're not worth any points whatsoever. Basically, at the beginning of the exam, Midoriya has just got his powers. He just got his powers just a few hours before, and he's not even sure if they're kicking in yet. He's at the back of the pack. Everyone else is scoring. He's got no points whatsoever. Nothing to show, and he's panicking. And he's convinced he's going to fail. And then they bring out the fourth robot that's worth nothing. And it's basically this giant robot that's like 20 stories high. It's a behemoth. And the rest of these kids are running. He's getting ready to run too. And he realizes N'Chaka I'm thoroughly convinced this is the love interest for him in the show. She's trapped. He had met her previously. They had a little moment. It was very cute. But she's trapped. And the thing is, he leaps into action. While everyone else is running away, he jumps into the fray. That's when his powers kick in, and all of a sudden you see just how powerful this kid is. He basically takes out this giant robot with one punch.
Tell you what, Dan.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you there, and we're gonna come back and put a few more minutes in another segment just to finish up, because I don't like leaving him right in the middle of that. So
Nerds, Richard here, taking a moment to talk to you about the podcast. First of all, thank you so much for listening. For those of you who do listen, wherever you listen, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or some other podcasting service, we would appreciate some feedback. Whether that's in the form of subscribing to the podcast there, or following us, or engaging with us in the polls that we have. This is on Spotify specifically. We have polls and questions on almost every episode, so we'd be glad for your feedback. Also, if you'd like to leave us a voice message, you can go to our website. It's anchor.fm/irreverentnerd and click the message button there to leave us a note. We will, as I said, include it on next week's episode. So, nerds, reach out. Let us know how we're doing. And now, back to this week's episode.
And we are back for another 10 to 15 minutes to finish up our talk about My Hero Academia. So, Dan, if you remember where you left off, you want to pick back up there, we'll continue on.
Sure. Well, as I was saying, there's just this wonderful scene. Well, like I said, Midoriya is jumping into action. He doesn't even know if he's got powers or not, but he knows he's got to do something. And actually, I think it's in the second episode, after Midoriya encounters All Might for the first time, Bakugo is taken prisoner by this sludge villain. And basically, all the heroes are standing back, and they're like, "Well, we can't approach him. This thing's too powerful." Midoriya jumps in, no powers whatsoever, but he leaps in there, and that's what convinces All Might that he is going to become his successor. That All Might has the ability to pass his powers down. Midoriya actually becomes the 9th person to have this ability that's passed down from one person to another. The quirk that's passed down from one person to the next. It's all tied into his All Might's arch villain backstory, which we could get into, but we'll be here for another couple of hours. But suffice it to say, All Might, like Will said, All Might is dying. He has gone toe to toe with his arch rival, his arch enemy, and he's only got a certain amount of time left. And right now, he goes from being this huge, bulky, muscular figure to being like a practical scarecrow because he can't maintain the superhero form for that long. But he's looking for a successor. And when he sees what Midoriya does, that convinces him this kid has the heart and soul of a hero. He doesn't have the powers, but the powers can come. You can't teach what this kid has as far as being courageous, being heroic, and wanting to save people. And that ends up saving him in the exam because there's rescue points as well as storing the villain points. And basically that action that he took in sacrificing points to save a potential classmate is what puts him over the edge. That's what gets him into the school. It's like All Might says, how can we refuse a hero that would sacrifice when there's nothing to gain except saving the life of someone else? How could we turn that person down to be admitted into our school? And that is what I love about the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I see why you guys say that it evokes Captain America. I can't help but think of, the Captain America, the First Avenger, where Steve Rogers, when he's still his fragile, skinny self, jumps on the grenade, and that's the reason why he gets chosen for the Super Soldier program. It's because of his courage, his bravery, his
I didn't think of that.
Well, that's the other interesting thing too. Midoriya in the first couple of seasons, he keeps damaging his body. He's got this immense power, but his body's not built for it. After the practical exam, he ends up breaking an arm, breaking both of his legs. And throughout the season, it's a running joke. There's Recovery Girl, who's the school nurse, who is able to heal wounds and injuries. And the running joke is he has to keep going to the nurse's office every day because he keeps finding new ways to injure himself.
Yeah, Recovery Girl probably used to be hot stuff, but at this point, she's an elderly woman, and so she's just smooching him to heal him. And
I have a theory. I don't know if this is true or not. I have a theory. Recovery Girl is probably like 30 years old and like really super hot, but because of her power, her healing people, it ages her. I think if she stopped aging people, she started looking like the traditional Japanese anime school nurse would, which are always hot. So
So she can only heal people through her kiss. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And to cover what we did previously, one of my all-time top 5 waifus, waifu number 5 is actually a nurse, so that's something to look forward to later. I talked to that. Oh, you go ahead,
man. That sounds like something a Japanese man would come up with.
I think we can devote a separate podcast for that.
Well, no, when I got into anime, my friend Josh was filling me on some of the words, and waifu is basically it's your anime wife.
Yes.
It is if you could have an anime character as your wife, this would be your wife. And like I said, I'm currently got about 20 of them, so I may never go back to 3D girls again. That's ladies, you had your chance. You screwed up. I'm sorry. Not my fault. I put myself out there. You don't want me. So hey.
So Dan, before this ends, I just have to ask you. Now, My Hero Academia is obviously the superior Japanese take on the Western superhero, but have you seen One Punch Man?
I had seen a couple of episodes. I tried. Maybe it was the wrong time for me to watch it. I tried getting into it, and I really couldn't get into it that much. It's happened before. There's been a few animes I've seen like the first episode, and I'm like, I'm not really digging this too much.
Yeah.
But I'll come back and I'll watch it later. But no, I've heard good things about it too, and probably when I get caught up on some other animes and some other shows, I'm probably going to get a chance to watch that one too. It's on the list.
Yeah,
What
I
about-
watched it before My Hero Academia, actually. Uh,
What about Buddha and Jesus? Have you guys watched that? Anime?
yes, I've read the manga. I've read the manga.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, it's hilarious. But
Really?
isn't the premise like it's like in the 20th century?
I
And
thought
Buddha
I
and-
told you about this.
You probably did. Like Buddha and Jesus are sharing an apartment. Oh, it's just a hilarious premise.
Yeah, I created
Wow.
a non-affiliated sequel, but then scrapped it where the Prophet Muhammad got kicked out by his 8 wives and had to come live with them. But I decided that was a bad idea and didn't do it.
yeah, you might make some people very angry.
Yeah.
Have you
But-
have you guys seen one called My Dressed Up Darling?
Mm.
Very good. If you are a convention goer and you like cosplay, this is a good one to take a look at.
Oh man, I think the very first anime I ever saw, this was like, I may be getting the timing wrong, but like, I think it was in the 90s. And I believe it was at either my grandmother's house or like some family member's house, because we didn't have cable all the time growing up. Like we would, every few years we would get one of those deals where it's like, hey, for 1 year you can get a discounted price, and we would get it for a year and then we'd cancel it. So I think it was at someone else's house. I can't remember for sure. But Cowboy Bebop on Cartoon Network Adult Swim was the first anime I ever saw. No, if memory serves me
good one.
correctly. Yeah, no, I found it fascinating. I was like a teenager, I believe, at the time, or at least early teenager, early 20s, kind of in that range there. And I was like, and it felt a little bit illicit. I was like, I shouldn't be watching this. But it was great. It was great.
You're like animated boobs.
Oh, well.
The animated boobs.
Yeah, don't remind him of Valentine.
You guys
He's a married
get,
man
like,
now. He can't have no waifus.
I'm sure
You-
that was part of the appeal. But it was also just very interesting. It was a very different art style than I had ever seen before as well. And it was kind of like almost like film noir, but Japanese style. It was kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, if you
Yeah.
ever feel tempted, Richard, just think of flat-chested Ed.
I don't know what that means.
Dan knows what it means.
I know. Did you guys see the live action Cowboy Bebop on Netflix?
No.
I have not. I did.
I saw the
did-
last clip where they introduced Ed, and I'm like, I'm not watching this. Plus, too, I have a. I'm not going to watch your show if you come out and call me sexist, racist, homophobe before I've even seen an episode like the actress who played Faye did, because I was just like, you're not selling me on your show. I mean, come on. You're not going to make me watch your show by making me think I'm a bad person for not watching your show. I mean,
yeah.
Yes. Are there racists out there? Yes. Are there homophobes out there? Yes. Are there assholes out there? Yes. But you know what else is out there? Really shitty shows. And you know what? You made one. You made a really shitty show, and you can't defend it.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm like, I'm all for having different stories told by different people, different walks of life. I love that. That's what makes good stories good. But again, when you make crap, you're not going to get my money, because my time and my money are way too valuable, and I'm not going to waste it on junk. And that seems to be the go-to thing right now, is calling out fans before something comes out, like Kenobi. I mean, everybody was jumping, shaking, just getting all upset about comments that were made, and I'm like, I didn't see any comments made, but I did see a crappy show.
Oh, you didn't like Kenobi?
You didn't like
Oh.
Kenobi? Oh, I like the second
Oh.
half. I have to say, I did like the second half, especially the final episode. The final episode, I enjoyed it.
What worried me was the writer coming out and going, I never saw Revenge of the Sith, and I'm like,
What?
crap.
How
Well,
could that doesn't make any sense?
Taika Waititi, the guy who did Love and Thunder.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You heard about him asking Natalie Portman if she wanted to be in this new Star Wars movie.
Ah,
Oh,
yes.
And she
Yeah,
tells her he's kidding, and she's like, "No, he was serious." It's like, you realize I did 3 of these things already. It's like, well, I didn't see them, so you
Yeah.
gotta walk that fine line between fanboy and detached. You gotta have somebody who knows the material and likes it,
hmm
and somebody who actually knows about it at least. I mean, someone who can be objective about it, but still say, "I saw it and I liked it. I enjoyed it."
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
Will.
feel a need to put my fingerprints all over it and just ruin it.
Oh man, yeah. Will and I, we kind of ragged on Thor: Love and Thunder a bit. We only gave it
Yeah.
2.5 stars.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, yeah. It's like if you see it, like you'll enjoy it. I mean, if you like Marvel, if you like the MCU, it's a popcorn flick. You'll enjoy it in the theater, but it's not great. It's not the worst Marvel movie. It's definitely not the best. So it's middle of the road is kind of how we rated it, and I think that's fair.
I still haven't seen Eternals or Doctor Strange 2 yet, so
Well, okay, I'll save you some time. Don't see Eternals. Do see Doctor Strange 2.
I went in and saw Bruce Campbell's parts online, so
there you
nobody's going to watch it. So
go. I
Who
have to
knows?
say,
You might like Eternals. I don't know. I'm just joking.
probably not.
I enjoyed the world building of Eternals, but yeah, the characters, there wasn't any particular character that I really resonated with. Like probably the closest is like Jon Snow, i.e. the
Jon Snow.
yeah, i.e. the wow, who's he end up being? Was it the Black Knight or something? It gets revealed at the end of the movie that he's like the Black Knight, something like that. He gets a black sword.
Oh, him.
Apparently it's somewhat.
Yeah, the Black Knight.
Actually, he shows up in that 80s Avengers comic that I talked about. Like he's in that randomly. I was like, ha, okay.
You're right. They introduced 2 new characters at the end of that film. Who was the other character? Was that Blade?
Oh yeah, Blade. Yeah,
Cool.
So it's interesting to see.
We ruined this for you, Dan.
Sorry,
No, that's cool.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, those are in the cutscenes at the end.
Yeah, and we haven't got back to them yet. I forgot they existed.
Yeah, which we have not done a review of Eternals. I enjoyed parts of it. I did like seeing Babylon on the big screen for the first time. That was pretty darn cool, I have to say. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that did Babylon on the big screen. So that I enjoyed that. But yeah, it was kind of middle of the road MCU as well. I have to admit.
I really think after Endgame they didn't have a plan. It was like, crap, these things are making movies. We're gonna make more of them, but we don't have a story.
Yeah, they're like,
Pretty
oh
much.
crap, what do we do now?
I know they're
everything.
I want Galactus.
Oh yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
I've heard rumors that he's going to be in one of the movies.
There
Well,
goes
hey,
the
guys.
disappearing baby.
I think that's probably a good signal for a cutoff here.
Maybe.
Some of this might get edited out, but yeah, we're trying to trim down the length of our episodes a little bit now.
Anything I said that you need to cut, I understand completely. I'm a handful.
You
By the
know,
way, if
kind
you
of,
leave anything in, if anyone gets offended, don't come after these guys. They knew they like me. I begged them to come back on, so please don't give them crap, okay?
it's like we'll have to put a little disclaimer at the beginning. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the irreverent nerds. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us again.
thank you,
This has
Dan.
been really
My
fun.
pleasure. Glad to do it. Glad to do it.
Yeah, like I
I think
enjoyed this. Well, we'll have to do it again before too long.
Definitely. Let me know when you guys want me to come back. I'll be happy to do it.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Irreverent Nerds podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at irreverent_nerds, plural. We are on Facebook. Our fan page is simply called The Irreverent Nerds. We're on YouTube, The Irreverent Nerd. And if you go to anchor.fm/irreverent nerd, you can support us for 99 cents a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. You can also send us a voice message, which we may include in a future episode. Fellow nerds, until next time, make it so. Engage. Avengers assemble. I'm Batman.